The galaxy was in turmoil, with the fate of countless civilizations hanging in the balance. The Galactic Council, a powerful assembly of the universe's most influential species, had sent out urgent calls to Earth, hoping for a response. They needed humanity's decision on a critical issue. But days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, and Earth did not reply. The Council, accustomed to control, was stunned by this silence. Why haven't they responded? Asked Tarlok, the leader of the Zorathians, his reptilian voice filled with frustration. Have they forgotten their place in the galaxy? Another member, Zeros of the Vayari, leaned forward, his alien eyes narrowing. Perhaps they are too weak to make a decision. We should proceed without them. But Zorik, the Council's oldest and wisest member, shook his head. We cannot ignore them. Humanity may have been silent, but they are still a force to be reckoned with. We must wait for their response. The Council continued to debate, unsure of how to handle Earth's quiet defiance. The diplomatic channels were flooded with messages, but Earth remained unresponsive. The Council had never encountered such arrogance before. They had expected humanity to be eager to comply with their demands, but instead they were met with silence. It was as if Earth had shut itself off from the rest of the galaxy. This wasn't just a delay. This was a statement. On Earth, things were very different. In a top-secret military base deep beneath the surface, a meeting was taking place. General Carter, a battle-hardened leader of the Terran fleet, stood before a massive holographic map, his eyes scanning the galaxy. His hands gripped the table, knuckles white from tension. The last message from the Council had been clear: join us or face the consequences. But Carter had a different idea. Do they really think we'll bow to them? Carter muttered to his officers, his voice low but full of intensity. They've been calling, waiting for our reply. But what they don't know is that we've been preparing something much bigger. This ends on our terms. His officers nodded in agreement. We've been building the fleet in secret, General. We're ready. The Terran fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Massive warships designed to withstand the harshest environments and unleash devastating firepower had been built on Earth's orders. The steel giants were more than just ships. They were symbols of humanity's resilience, power, and determination. Meanwhile, back on the Council's headquarters, tensions were rising. Still no word from Earth, Tarlok growled. They think they can ignore us? We will show them who rules the galaxy. Zeros tapped his clawed fingers on the table, deep in thought. We have no time to waste. We must act before Earth makes a move. Zorik, however, remained calm. Patience. If Earth is silent, they must have their reasons. We cannot rush into this. We wait for them to make the first move. But the Council didn't have to wait long. A few days later, a sudden surge of energy appeared on their radar. It was massive, far larger than anything the Council's sensors had ever detected. At first they thought it was a glitch, but then the magnitude of the signal became clear. Earth had responded. A message from Earth's fleet appeared on the Council's communication screens. General Carter's voice echoed through the halls of the Council. You wanted a response, he said. Well, here it is. We've had enough of your calls. We're coming and we're bringing the fleet. A collective gasp filled the room. The Council members exchanged shocked glances. What does this mean? Tarlok asked, his eyes wide with disbelief. Zero scowled. It means they're not asking for permission. They're coming to take control. The Council tried to scramble, sending out their own fleets to intercept Earth's warships. But it was already too late. As Earth's fleet emerged from the depths of space, the size and power of the ships were nothing short of terrifying. The fleet stretched across the horizon like a sea of steel giants, each ship massive enough to block out the stars behind it. The ship's sleek designs gleamed under the distant sun, their weapon systems already primed for action. Carter's voice crackled through the communication channels again. We are not here to negotiate. You've had your chance. Now you will see what humanity is capable of. The Council, now fully aware of the gravity of the situation, scrambled to formulate a plan. But it was clear that Earth had already made its decision, and they were not interested in compromise. The galaxy's greatest powers, once so sure of their dominance, now stood helpless in the face of humanity's might. Back on Earth, General Carter stood before his fleet, watching the stars beyond. "This is our moment," he whispered to himself. "We don't just survive, we conquer." The fleet of steel giants, born from humanity's strength, power, and sheer will, moved toward the galaxy's heart, where the Council waited in fear. They had underestimated Earth for far too long. Now, humanity would show them what it meant to be truly powerful. As the ships of Earth's fleet closed in on the Council's stronghold, the tension was palpable. The galaxy, once filled with endless possibilities, was now watching its fate unfold before it. The Council had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now they would pay the price. But Earth's fleet was not just a force to be feared, it was a message to every corner of the galaxy. Humanity would no longer be ignored. And with that, the first battle for the future of the galaxy began. The vast expanse of space was silent as Earth's fleet moved closer to the Galactic Council's stronghold. The fleet, an enormous collection of steel giants, was so massive that it seemed to swallow the stars around it. Each ship, designed for sheer power and endurance, gleamed like an unstoppable force. General Carter, standing at the command center of the flagship Fortitude, looked out over the star-filled void. His mind raced with the knowledge that this was not just a military mission, but a statement to the entire galaxy. Humanity was no longer going to be ignored. Inside the Council's headquarters, chaos was unfolding. The alien leaders, once confident and dismissive of humanity's power, now stood at the edges of panic. Tarlok, the Zarathian leader, was pacing back and forth, his eyes darting nervously between the displays. "This is madness," he muttered. "How did they build this fleet? We were prepared for a small response, but this is a war." Zeros, the Vayari diplomat, clenched his fists. "We underestimated them. They've come for more than just our compliance. They've come to take over." Zorik, the wise elder of the Council, remained calm. He had lived through countless galactic conflicts, but this was different. He had always believed in peace, but Earth's actions were a declaration of war. "Prepare the defenses," he ordered, his voice calm but resolute. "We cannot afford to be caught off guard. Humanity is not like the others. We need to be ready." The first wave of Earth's fleet arrived at the edge of the Council's territory, and the communication channels immediately lit up. The Council scrambled to respond, sending out their own fleets in an attempt to intercept the Terran forces before they could get too close. But it was too late. Earth ships moved with terrifying precision, as if they had been planning this moment for years. "We're ready," Carter's voice crackled over the comms, cold and authoritative. "We don't need your permission. We are taking control now." The Council's forces, a mixture of heavily armored warships and sleek, fast-moving cruisers, sped toward Earth's massive ships. For a moment, there was a brief flicker of hope. Perhaps the Council's fleets, with their advanced weaponry and speed, could match Earth's strength. But that hope was shattered in an instant. Earth's ships unleashed their first volley of fire, and the sky seemed to explode. The blast of energy was unlike anything the Council had ever witnessed. The first wave of alien ships disintegrated in seconds, their shields no match for Earth's firepower. The sheer force of the Terran gun sent shockwaves through space, shattering enemy hulls like glass. "Impossible!" Zero shouted, his voice filled with disbelief. "How could they have so much power?" "We must retaliate!" Tarlok yelled, but his orders were lost in the chaos of battle. The Council's fleet was crumbling under the relentless assault of Earth's warships. No matter how hard the Council tried, their ships were no match for the might of humanity. General Carter stood in the command center, watching the battle unfold on the screens. His eyes narrowed with determination. "We've waited long enough," he muttered to himself. "Now they'll see what happens when you ignore us." As Earth's fleet continued to obliterate the Council's forces, the alien leaders on the Council struggled to maintain control. Their once proud ships were being destroyed one after another, and the remaining forces were retreating, desperate to regroup and salvage what they could. But the damage had already been done. Humanity's message was clear: Earth was not a world to be taken lightly. Back on the Fortitude, Carter addressed his officers. "We have one goal now. We finish this." His voice was steady, but the weight of the situation was not lost on him. They were not just fighting for Earth's survival. They were fighting for the future of the galaxy. No longer would humanity remain in the shadows of the galaxy's power. No longer would they be forgotten. But even as Earth's victory seemed assured, the Council wasn't finished yet. Zorik the Elder had a plan, a desperate plan. "Send out the emergency signal," he ordered. "We must call for help. There are other powers in the galaxy, powers that can help us stop them." Tarlok hesitated. "But what if they don't respond? What if Earth has already tipped the balance too far?" "We can't afford to wait for the answer," Zorik said firmly. "We call for reinforcements now, or we face total defeat." On the Fortitude, Carter's eyes narrowed as he watched the flickering communication signals. "They're calling for help," he said almost to himself. "They won't give up easily." Just as the Council's distress signal went out, a new fleet appeared on the edge of the system. It was massive, but this time it wasn't an alien fleet. It was something far more terrifying, the Terran second wave. The fleet wasn't just about raw power anymore. It was a show of overwhelming force. Ships of all sizes, from the smallest destroyers to the largest dreadnoughts, moved forward in perfect unison, blocking any chance of escape for the alien forces. Carter's voice rang out again, this time over the emergency channel. "You wanted to see our might. Now you will understand why you should have never ignored us." The Council's leaders watched helplessly as their fleets were encircled. It was no longer about fighting, it was about surrender. They had underestimated humanity, and now the cost of that mistake was becoming clear. Earth was not just a power to be feared. It was a force of nature, unstoppable and relentless. Zorik, his face grim, turned to the others. "There is nothing more to be done. Humanity has shown us their strength. It's time to negotiate." But Carter had no interest in negotiating. As Earth's fleet pressed in, he made one final declaration. "There will be no more talks. Earth will no longer be a part of your council. This galaxy will learn to respect us, or it will fall." The battle was over. The Galactic Council had been defeated. Earth had not just survived, it had conquered. And as Carter stood on the deck of the Fortitude, looking out at the shattered remains of the Council's fleet, he knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy would never forget the day Earth showed its true strength. The universe had been warned, and now it would have to answer to humanity's might. The calm of space was shattered as Earth's fleet continued its advance. The last remnants of the Galactic Council's forces scattered in all directions, desperately trying to escape the relentless assault. General Carter stood at the command center of the Fortitude, his eyes fixed on the holographic displays. His face, usually stern and composed, now showed the weight of the battle. They had achieved a major victory, but Carter knew it wasn't over. The Council would regroup, and they would not go down without a fight. "General, reinforcements are on the way," Commander Ramirez reported, her voice steady, but tinged with the excitement of their success. Carter nodded, but his eyes remained cold. "We can't afford to let our guard down. This is only the beginning." As Earth's fleet continued to push deeper into the heart of the galaxy, the Council's leaders were not yet defeated. They had suffered a crushing blow, but the alien alliance still had one ace up its sleeve, the ancient Guardians. Tarlok, the Zorathian leader, stood before a large, glowing console, his eyes wide with desperation. "We've lost so many ships, but we still have one chance. The Guardians are our last hope. If we can wake them, they'll help us defeat the Terran fleet." Zeros, the Vayari diplomat, frowned. "The Guardians are ancient and unpredictable. Are we sure we want to risk awakening them?" "There is no other choice," Zorik, the wise elder, said, his voice filled with gravity. "We must try. Earth has pushed us to the edge, but the Guardians might still tip the scales in our favor." The Council's leaders reluctantly agreed, and the ritual to awaken the Guardians began. The Guardians were mythical beings, creatures of immense power and wisdom, who had been sealed away for millennia. Only the Council knew how to reach them, and now they were their only hope. Back on Earth's fleet, General Carter was preparing for the next phase of the mission. We need to hit their capital world. Once we take that, the rest will fall into place, he said to his officers. We're ready, sir, Lieutenant Matthews replied, his hands moving quickly over the controls. But there's something strange happening. The Council is sending a signal. It's different. I don't know how to explain it. Carter's eyes narrowed. Patch it through, now. The signal came through loud and clear, a strange, low-frequency hum that rattled the entire command center. It wasn't just a message. It was a force, a power that seemed to vibrate through space itself. The voice that came through was ancient and haunting. The Guardians have awoken. You are not prepared for what is coming, Terran. Carter's blood ran cold. He had heard the legends of the Guardians, but he had never believed they were real. Ancient beings with the power to destroy entire fleets. It was a gamble, one that the Council was now willing to take. Get me the fleet commanders, Carter ordered, his voice sharp. We need to prepare for an assault. If the Guardians are real, we'll need everything we've got. As the Terran fleet began to brace for impact, a massive shadow loomed on the horizon. The Guardians had arrived. They were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Colossal creatures of pure energy, their forms shifting and glowing with impossible power. Their very presence seemed to bend the fabric of space itself, and as they moved, they left a trail of destruction in their wake. The Guardians were as old as the stars, and their power was beyond comprehension. General Carter watched in stunned silence as the first Guardian ship began to approach. It was enormous, dwarfing the largest Terran warships. Its energy shields rippled with raw force, and its weapons glowed with an eerie light. This is it, Carter muttered, his hand gripping the arm of his chair. Prepare for impact. The battle that followed was unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The Guardians unleashed their full might, their attacks shattering Terran warships like they were made of paper. Earth's fleet fought valiantly, but the sheer power of the Guardians seemed unstoppable. For every Terran ship that was destroyed, 2 more took its place, but it was clear the Guardians were overwhelming them. We can't win this fight, Lieutenant Matthews said, his voice tight with fear. We need to retreat, or we'll lose everything. Carter didn't answer immediately. His mind raced as he watched the Guardians tear through his fleet. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing on him. It was then that he remembered something. The Guardians had a weakness, a long-forgotten vulnerability buried deep within their ancient codes. It was a gamble, but it was the only chance they had left. Commander Ramirez, we need to hit them with everything we've got. Aim for their core systems. We have one shot at this. Ramirez hesitated. Are you sure, General? It's a long shot. If we miss, we don't have a choice. Fire everything! The fleet's remaining warships, battered and bruised, turned their guns toward the Guardians. The first wave of fire hit the energy shields of the Guardian's ship, and for a brief moment the shields flickered. It was enough. Full power now, Carter shouted. The second wave of fire exploded into the core of the Guardian ship, and for the first time in the battle, the Guardians staggered. The massive energy shields collapsed, and the colossal ship began to crack and splinter. It was working. With a deafening roar, the Guardian ship exploded in a shower of sparks and energy. The remaining Guardians, momentarily stunned, tried to regroup, but the Terran fleet wasn't finished. The final push had begun. The battle raged on, but it was clear now. Earth's fleet was winning. One by one, the Guardians fell, their ancient power no match for humanity's determination and firepower. As the final Guardian ship crumbled into nothingness, General Carter breathed a sigh of relief. We did it, he said, his voice soft but filled with pride. We've won. But even as the last of the Guardians fell, Carter knew this wasn't the end. The Council, though weakened, would rebuild. The galaxy wasn't finished with humanity yet. But for now, Earth had proven one undeniable truth. No force in the galaxy could stand against them. And as Carter looked out at the wreckage of the battle, he knew one thing for certain. Earth was ready for whatever came next. The galaxy had been warned. The stars in the distance seemed to mock the silence that hung over the battlefield. Earth's fleet, though victorious in its struggle against the Guardians, had suffered heavy losses. General Carter stood alone in the command center of the Fortitude, his fingers brushing against the cold surface of the table as his mind raced. The victory had been hard won, but now was not the time for celebration. The Council was still out there, and despite the crushing defeat, they weren't done yet. "General, we've lost 30% of our fleet," Commander Ramirez's voice echoed through the quiet room, her tone tinged with concern. "We're not in the clear yet. The Council will rebuild." "I know," Carter replied, his voice as cold as the space outside. "But we've shown them we are not to be underestimated. We will finish this, no matter the cost." The Council, battered and broken, had retreated to the far edges of their territory. They had lost their fleets, their guardians, and their arrogance. But even in defeat, the Council was a force to be reckoned with, and Carter knew that it was only a matter of time before they attempted to strike back on the Council's homeworld. Tarlok, the Zorathian leader, was fuming. He paced back and forth in the war room, his reptilian eyes narrowed with frustration. "How could this happen?" He growled, his voice a low hiss. "We had the Guardians, we had everything. And still, Earth destroyed us. We underestimated them," Zero said, his voice calm but filled with anger. "We thought they were nothing more than a primitive species, a weak planet. Now they've shown us just how wrong we were." Zorik, the elder of the Council, looked out the large window of the war room, his expression unreadable. "This isn't over. Earth may have won a battle, but they have not won the war. We will rebuild. And this time, we will have something they cannot defeat." Tarlok turned sharply toward Zorik. "What do you mean?" "We have a secret weapon," Zorik said, his voice barely a whisper. "One we've kept hidden for centuries. If we awaken it, Earth will have no chance." Tarlok and Zeros exchanged uneasy glances. "What kind of weapon?" Tarlok asked. Zorik smiled darkly. "The Leviathans. On Earth's fleet, Carter received a message, one that chilled him to his core. The message was encrypted, but he had seen enough to know it was from the Council. The words were simple, but the meaning was clear. You have won a battle, but the war is far from over. The Leviathans are waking. Carter's heart skipped a beat. He had heard the legends of the Leviathans, but he had always dismissed them as mere myths. Gigantic creatures of unimaginable power, said to be capable of destroying entire fleets with a single move. The thought that the Council had such a weapon at their disposal sent a chill down his spine. "Prepare the fleet," Carter said, his voice firm. "We're going after them before they can use the Leviathans." But as Earth's ships mobilized, they received another shocking update. The Leviathans were already on the move. The Council had activated them faster than anyone had anticipated, and they were headed straight for Earth. "What kind of force are we dealing with?" Lieutenant Matthews asked, his voice tense. Carter turned to the tactical display. The Leviathans were enormous, larger than anything Earth had ever encountered. Their sheer size made them impossible to ignore. Each one was capable of ripping through entire fleets, and there were rumors that their weapons could vaporize entire planets. If the Council had awakened them, Earth would have to act fast. "We don't have much time," Carter said, his voice heavy with the weight of the situation. "We need to move quickly, or we'll lose everything." The fleet raced toward the Leviathan's position, their engines roaring as they prepared for the inevitable confrontation. As they neared the location of the creatures, a feeling of dread washed over the crew. There was no escaping the fact that they were about to face an enemy unlike any other. "Prepare for combat," Carter ordered, his voice steady but filled with the urgency of the moment. "Focus everything on their weak points. We take them down, or we die trying." The first Leviathan appeared on their sensors, its massive form blotting out the stars as it emerged from the darkness. Its body was a twisted mix of organic and mechanical, its armored hide almost impenetrable. As it moved closer, the fleet opened fire, but the blasts bounced off its thick exterior. "We're not making a dent," Lieutenant Matthews shouted over the comms. Carter gritted his teeth, watching as the Leviathan's energy shields absorbed every shot. The Terran fleet was powerful, but they were nothing against these monsters. The first Leviathan fired a massive energy beam, obliterating one of Earth's warships in an instant. The explosion was blinding, and the shockwave rocked the entire fleet. "Stay focused," Carter barked, even as the battle grew more intense. "We need to find a way to break through." As the Leviathans continued their assault, the Terran fleet fell into chaos. The creatures' weapons were devastating, and the crews fought to keep their ships intact. Carter watched helplessly as more of his ships were destroyed, one by one. Earth had thrown everything they had at the Council, and now the Leviathans were slowly but surely turning the tide. But just when it seemed all hope was lost, a new signal came through. It was a Terran signal, but it wasn't coming from the Fortitude. It was coming from one of Earth's hidden outposts, an outpost that had been kept secret for decades. Carter's eyes widened as he processed the message. "General, we've found a way to destroy the Leviathans," the voice on the other end said. "We've developed a new weapon, one that can penetrate their shields." Carter's heart raced. "Send me the coordinates. We're on our way." The fleet altered course, racing toward the hidden outpost. As the Leviathans continued their assault on Earth's fleet, it became clear that this would be their final chance to turn the tide. With the new weapon in hand, Earth's fleet had one last shot at survival. The stakes couldn't be higher, but as Carter looked out into the vast, chaotic battlefield, he knew one thing for certain: Earth would never stop fighting. The Terran fleet moved swiftly toward the coordinates given by Earth's secret outpost. Carter could feel the tension building as they neared their target. Every second felt like a countdown to destruction. The Leviathans, massive and merciless, continued their attack, systematically obliterating Earth's forces. It seemed impossible to win, but Carter was determined. The message from the outpost had given him a sliver of hope, and he wasn't about to let it slip away. "General, we're approaching the coordinates," Lieutenant Matthews reported, his voice tight with anxiety. "But we're picking up more energy signatures. The Leviathans. They've detected us." Carter's heart raced. "How many?" he asked, his voice low and controlled. "At least 3 more," Matthews answered. "They're coming straight for us." Carter's mind worked quickly. They didn't have time to waste. If they didn't reach the outpost soon, the Leviathans would tear apart what remained of Earth's fleet. "Order the fleet to split up," Carter commanded. "We'll draw their fire and buy ourselves some time. Make sure the weapon gets to the outpost. That's our only shot." As Earth's ships scattered, dodging the deadly beams of the Leviathans, Carter couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation. His fleet had been battered beyond recognition. Many of his best officers had already fallen. But Earth had never been one to surrender. Not now, not ever. The battle intensified as the Leviathans closed in. The Terran fleet fired everything they had, but their weapons barely scratched the Leviathans' thick, armored exteriors. One of Earth's warships exploded in a burst of flame as a Leviathan's energy beam sliced through it. Another ship was hit seconds later. The loss was devastating, but Carter knew they had no choice but to keep fighting. "General, the outpost is in sight," Matthews said urgently. "But there's something strange happening. The Leviathans are backing off. They're retreating," Carter's brow furrowed. "Retreating?" he muttered to himself. "What's going on?" Suddenly the answer hit him like a lightning bolt. The Leviathans weren't retreating, they were regrouping. They had detected something far more dangerous than the Terran fleet. They had detected the weapon. "They're afraid of it," Carter said, realization dawning. "This is it. They know the weapon can destroy them." The fleet pushed forward, their weapons still firing as they fought to hold back the Leviathans long enough for the weapon to be activated. Carter's eyes locked on the approaching outpost. He could see the massive structure now, hidden among the debris of a destroyed moon. The new weapon, a powerful energy core capable of piercing the Leviathan's shields, was waiting inside. "We've got one shot at this," Carter said to his crew. "Prepare for the launch. This is it." As the fleet reached the outpost, Carter watched as a team of soldiers moved swiftly to the launch chamber, the weapon in hand. The Leviathans were closing in again, but this time they were taking no chances. They were determined to stop the humans from using the weapon, knowing full well what it could do. "General," Matthews said, his voice shaky, "we've got incoming. The Leviathans are almost here. Carter's grip tightened on the command chair. Hold them off as long as you can. We need just a few more minutes. The Terran fleet fired at the Leviathans, trying to slow them down, but it was clear they were outmatched. The Leviathans' immense size and firepower seemed unstoppable. As one of Earth's warships took another direct hit and exploded in a blinding flash, Carter realized they might not survive this. But the weapon had to work. They had to make it work. The minutes dragged on, and it felt as if time itself was slowing down. The tension in the air was unbearable. The fleet was fighting with everything they had left, but it wasn't enough. Carter's gaze locked on the outpost, and for a moment he wondered if they were too late. Then the sound of a successful transmission echoed through the command center. "The weapon was ready, General," Matthews said, a hint of disbelief in his voice. "It's time. The weapon is activated. We can fire at the Leviathans." Carter didn't hesitate. "Do it." The weapon's energy core flared to life, emitting a blinding beam of light that shot toward the nearest Leviathan. The energy beam hit the creature head-on, and for a split second everything seemed to freeze. The Leviathan's shields flickered, then shattered, and the massive creature let out a deafening roar as the beam tore through its core. In a burst of energy, the Leviathan exploded, its remains scattering across the battlefield. The remaining Leviathans, seeing their ally fall, hesitated for just a moment. That was all the Terran fleet needed. With a renewed surge of firepower, Earth's ships unleashed everything they had left, hitting the remaining Leviathans with precision. One by one, the massive creatures fell, their once impenetrable shields no match for the power of the weapon. Carter exhaled in relief, but he knew better than to celebrate too soon. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. The Council would regroup, and they would come back stronger. But for now, humanity had shown them a glimpse of what they were capable of. "We did it," Matthews said, his voice filled with awe. Carter nodded, but his gaze remained fixed on the battlefield. "Yes, but this is just the beginning. The galaxy will remember what happened here today. Earth will never be ignored again." As Earth's fleet began to regroup and assess the damage, Carter allowed himself a brief moment of peace. They had survived. They had defeated the Leviathans, and for the first time, the galaxy would understand that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. But as Carter looked toward the future, he knew that this victory would only be the start of something much bigger. The galaxy was vast, and the challenges ahead would be immense. But Earth had proven one thing. No matter how dark the future seemed, humanity would always rise to meet it, and they would rise together. The silence that followed the battle was deafening. The stars glowed calmly, unaffected by the chaos that had unfolded just moments before. Earth's fleet had emerged victorious against the Leviathans, but the price had been high. The fleet was scattered, and many of the ships had taken severe damage. General Carter stood at the helm of the Fortitude, watching the wreckage of the battlefield. There were no cheers, no celebrations. The weight of the war still hung heavy in the air. "General, we've lost a lot of ships," Lieutenant Matthews said, his voice low. "But we won." "We actually did it," Carter nodded slowly, his gaze distant. "We won this battle, Matthews, but it's not over. The Council is still out there, and they'll be looking for revenge." The message was clear. Earth had struck a blow, but the war was far from finished. As the fleet began to regroup, Carter received a troubling report. The Council's surviving forces had retreated to a secret location, somewhere deep in an uncharted system. They were rebuilding, and Carter knew that this was a threat they couldn't ignore. The Council had learned their lesson, but they were far from beaten. "We've got to find them," Carter said, his jaw clenched. "They won't stay hidden for long. We need to strike before they're ready to come after us again." The fleet's remaining ships moved cautiously through space, keeping a close eye on their surroundings. The tension was palpable, and Carter couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. The galaxy, it seemed, was never truly at peace. After days of searching, the fleet finally stumbled upon a strange energy signature emanating from a distant planet in a remote system. It was unlike anything Earth had ever encountered. The energy pulses were irregular, and Carter knew instinctively that it wasn't natural. "General, you need to see this," Matthews said, his voice tinged with urgency. "We've found something big." Carter quickly made his way to the observation deck, his mind racing. The display showed a massive structure buried deep within the planet's surface. The energy readings coming from the planet were off the charts. It was clear that the Council was hiding something powerful there. "Is it a weapon?" Carter asked, his eyes narrowing as he studied the data. "It looks like it," Matthews replied. "A weapon we've never seen before." Carter's mind raced. He had suspected that the Council would retaliate, but this was something different. He had no idea what they had been hiding, but it was clear that whatever it was, it had the potential to change the course of the war. "We have to go in," Carter said, his voice firm. "Prepare the fleet. We're going to find out what the Council is hiding." The fleet moved toward the planet with caution, knowing that they were walking into a dangerous situation. As they entered the atmosphere, the readings became more erratic. The strange energy pulse intensified, and Carter's unease grew. This wasn't just another fight, it was a final confrontation, one that would determine the fate of the galaxy. "General, we're picking up signals," Matthews said. "They're coming from the planet's surface." "It's a trap," Carter's heart raced. "All ships, prepare for combat. This is it. We either take them out now, or we don't survive." The fleet descended toward the surface, but the moment they entered the planet's orbit, the skies above erupted in fire. The Council had set a trap, a massive fleet of warships, far larger than anything they had encountered before, emerged from the planet's surface. The fleet opened fire immediately, but the Council's new weapon was far more powerful than anything they had prepared for. The Terran ships struggled against the onslaught. The Council had been hiding a fleet of massive warships, each one a weapon of mass destruction. The energy pulses from the planet intensified as the warships fired upon Earth's fleet, and one ship after another was destroyed. "General, we can't keep up," Matthews shouted. "Their fleet is too powerful." Carter's mind raced. They were losing ships fast. The fleet was outmatched, and retreat wasn't an option. "Hold your ground," Carter shouted. "We fight to the last man." But the Council's new weapon was relentless. Each pulse from the planet's surface seemed to drain the very life from Earth's ships. The battle raged on, but it was clear the Terran fleet couldn't hold out forever. One by one, their ships were being overwhelmed. "General, we need to retreat." "It's the only chance we have," Matthews urged. Carter gritted his teeth. He couldn't retreat, not now. They had come too far. There had to be a way to win, and then, just as it seemed all hope was lost, Carter saw it, an opening. The energy pulses from the planet's surface were coming from a single, central point. If they could destroy it, they could disable the entire fleet. The problem was, the central energy core was deep within the planet, well protected by the Council's ships. "We need a small team to infiltrate the planet's surface," Carter said, his voice steady. "Matthews, gather a team." "We're going in." Matthews didn't hesitate. He gathered a group of Earth's best soldiers, all trained for situations like this. They would have to go in under the cover of the battle, using the chaos to slip past the Council's defenses. The stakes had never been higher. The fate of Earth and the galaxy hung in the balance. The team descended toward the planet, their landing craft cutting through the smoke and debris. As they approached the surface, Carter's thoughts were focused on the task ahead. They had to disable the energy core, or all would be lost. They fought their way through the Council's defenses, moving quickly and silently. The underground facility was guarded, but the team was skilled. They fought their way inside, reaching the core. Carter's heart pounded as he stared at the massive energy core, the source of the Council's power. "Matthews, get ready," Carter said, his voice tight. "We've got one shot at this." Matthews nodded, and with a final push, the team planted explosives around the core. The countdown began, and Carter felt the weight of the moment. "Let's move!" Carter shouted. The team sprinted out of the facility, their footsteps pounding as the timer ticked down. The energy core detonated with a blinding flash, and the ground shook beneath their feet. As the explosion rippled through the planet, the Council's fleet faltered. The energy pulses stopped, and their warships lost power. Earth's fleet took advantage of the moment, launching a final, decisive attack. The battle ended in a crushing victory for Earth. The Council had been defeated, and the weapon that could have destroyed them was no more. The galaxy had been forever changed. General Carter stood on the deck of the Fortitude, watching the aftermath of the battle. The war was over. Earth had won, but the price had been high. "We did it," Matthews said quietly. Carter nodded, his eyes scanning the stars. "Yes, but this is only the beginning. The galaxy will remember today. Earth will never be underestimated again." And with that, Carter knew that humanity had earned its place in the galaxy. The war was over, but their story was just beginning.